Colonel Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of the transport ship and stared at the gray rock below. Bhatti 180 looked like every other dead moon she had seen in her 20 years of service. No atmosphere worth mentioning, no water, no life. Just endless gray dust in craters that stretched from one horizon to the other. Not much to look at, is it? Lieutenant James Rodriguez came to stand beside her. He was young, maybe 25, and this was his first deep space assignment. That's exactly why they picked it, Chen said. She was a tall woman with short black hair and eyes that never stopped moving, always looking, always planning. Nobody wants it, nobody cares about it, makes it perfect neutral ground. The Galactic Council had chosen Bhatti 180 for the peace talks between the Krenth Dominion and the Valorum Collective. The two alien races had been fighting over a cluster of resource-rich planets for 3 years. Thousands had died. Entire colonies had been destroyed. Finally, both sides agreed to talk, but they needed a neutral place, somewhere that belonged to nobody. That's where humanity came in. Humans were new to the galactic community, only 50 years since first contact. They didn't have the old grudges, the ancient feuds that made the older races hate each other. They could be mediators, peacemakers. Chen's job was simple on paper. Take her security team to Bhatti 180 3 weeks before the talks. Set up a safe zone. Make sure the diplomats wouldn't get killed by falling rocks or equipment failures. Basic stuff. But Chen hadn't survived 2 decades in the military by taking things at face value. Run the scans again, she told Rodriguez. I want a complete geological survey. Every crater, every ridge, every crack in the ground. Rodriguez looked confused. Ma'am, we're just setting up a conference center. Why do we need geological data? Chen turned to look at him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. Because I don't trust peaceful aliens any more than I trust angry ones. We're going to know this rock better than we know our own homes. Clear? Yes, ma'am. The transport ship landed 2 hours later in what the survey team called Crater 7. It was a flat area about 5 kilometers wide, surrounded by low ridges. The Galactic Council had already sent down prefabricated buildings, conference rooms, living quarters, power generators, everything needed for a week of talks. Chen's team consisted of 12 people. Rodriguez was her second in command. Then there was Sergeant Emily Park, a weapons specialist who could take apart and rebuild any gun in the galaxy. Corporal David Okonkwo handled communications. Private First Class Lisa Zhang was their medical officer. The rest were combat engineers, all of them cross-trained in at least 3 specialties. They weren't diplomats, they were soldiers, but soldiers who knew how to build things as well as destroy them. The first week was spent setting up the official camp. They assembled the conference center, tested the power systems, and made sure the environmental controls worked. The temperature on Bhatti 180 swung wildly. The moon was tidally locked to its gas giant parent. One side always faced the planet, trapped in eternal twilight. The other side faced deep space, frozen and dark. The border between light and dark was where they built the camp, where temperatures were almost bearable. But while half the team worked on the official duties, Chen took the other half on long walks across the moon's surface. Look at this, she said to Sergeant Park on the 3rd day. They stood at the edge of a lava tube, a tunnel carved by ancient volcanic activity. These tubes run for kilometers underground, natural cover, temperature stable, hidden from orbital sensors. Park nodded slowly. She was starting to understand. You're planning defensive positions. I'm planning options, Chen corrected. Maybe the talks go well. Maybe everyone shakes hands and goes home, but maybe they don't. They mapped 17 major lava tubes in the first week, some connected to each other, forming a network beneath the surface. Others were dead ends, but could be used as supply caches or fallback positions. Chen also studied the craters. Most were stable, millions of years old, but some had edges that looked fragile, like they might collapse with the right push. She marked those on her private maps. The temperature differential interested her most. Where hot met cold, strange things happened. Gases from the moon's interior vented along the border zone. Winds kicked up, carrying dust in swirling patterns. The ground itself contracted and expanded with the temperature changes, creating stress fractures. "This moon is more alive than it looks," she told her team on day 10. They had gathered in their private quarters, away from the official buildings. "It has systems, patterns. We can use those." "Use them for what?" Corporal Okonkwo asked. Chen pulled up a holographic map of the area. Red dots marked potential defensive positions. Blue lines showed underground routes. Green circles indicated what she called environmental leverage points, places where small actions could have big consequences. "For whatever we need to," she said. "I've read the intelligence reports. This peace talk is fragile. Both sides have hardliners who don't want it to succeed, and there are other factions in the galaxy who would love to see the Krenth and Valorum destroy each other." "You think someone might attack the talks?" Rodriguez asked. "I think we should be ready if they do." The second week, they started preparing in earnest. They planted supply caches in hidden locations: food, water, medical supplies, weapons, communications equipment, everything sealed in containers designed to survive the moon's harsh conditions. They also started modifying the survey drones that came with their equipment. These were simple machines designed to map terrain and analyze rocks. But Chen had Okonkwo reprogram them. Now they could carry sensors to different locations, monitor movement, even place small charges if needed. "This is getting close to the line," Park said quietly. "We're supposed to be peacekeepers." "We're supposed to keep our people alive," Chen corrected. "Everything we're doing has a non-military explanation. We're surveying. We're preparing emergency shelters. We're testing equipment. If anyone asks, that's all we're doing." On day 15, the Krenth sent word that their delegation would arrive in 1 week. The Valorum confirmed they would arrive the same day. Both sides wanted to show they weren't afraid, weren't backing down. Chen intensified the training. Her team practiced moving through the lava tubes in full suits. They ran drills for evacuation, for lockdown, for combat scenarios. They memorized maps until everyone could navigate the underground network blindfolded. "Are we being paranoid?" Zhang asked after a particularly exhausting drill. Chen thought about all the wars she had seen, all the peace talks that failed, all the times someone had trusted the wrong people and paid for it with their lives. "Paranoia keeps you alive," she said. "Complacency gets you killed." By day 20, they were ready. The conference center gleamed in the twilight. The living quarters were comfortable. The whole camp looked professional, peaceful, exactly what it was supposed to be. But beneath the surface, hidden in tubes and caves in carefully marked positions, was another kind of preparation. A network of supplies, sensors, and options that nobody could see. Chen stood alone at the observation post on the final night before the delegations arrived. The gas giant hung huge in the sky, bands of color swirling across its surface. Bhatti 180's gray dust stretched away in all directions. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. But Chen had learned a long time ago that looks could be deceiving. She had turned this worthless moon into something else. Something with potential. Something with teeth. She just hoped they wouldn't need to use them. The next morning, the first ships appeared in orbit. The galaxy's eyes turned toward Bhatti 180. Everyone hoped for peace. Chen hoped for the best and prepared for the worst. That was her job. That was what kept people alive. The talks were about to begin. The Krenth ships arrived first. 3 massive vessels that blocked out the stars as they moved into orbit. Chen watched from the command center as their signatures appeared on the screens. The ships were beautiful in a deadly way. All sharp angles and dark metal, covered in weapons systems that could level a city. "They're not taking chances," Rodriguez observed. He stood beside Chen, studying the tactical display. "Neither are we," Chen replied quietly. The Krenth shuttles descended 2 hours later. 6 of them, moving in tight formation. Military discipline, even for a peace mission. The shuttles landed on the designated pad 3 kilometers from the main camp, far enough away to be respectful, close enough to respond if needed. The Krenth looked like what humans would call reptiles, but that was too simple. They stood on 2 legs, yes, and had scaled skin in deep green and brown patterns, but they had 4 arms instead of 2. Their eyes glowed with an inner light, orange and fierce. When they breathed, small flames flickered from their nostrils. Their leader was called War Chief Krenna. She was taller than the others, her scales darker, almost black. Scars covered her arms and face. Each scar was a story, Chen knew. The Krenth marked their victories on their own skin. Human, Krenna said when they met. Her voice sounded like rocks grinding together. She spoke in Galactic Common, the trade language most species used. Your camp is adequate. Coming from a Krenth, that was high praise. Thank you, War Chief, Chen said. She didn't bow. The Krenth respected strength, not submission. We hope the talks will be successful. Krenna's eyes studied Chen for a long moment. You are a warrior. I can see it in how you stand, how you watch. I'm a soldier, Chen agreed, but today I'm here for peace. Peace. Krenna tested the word like it tasted strange. We shall see. The Valorum arrived 6 hours later. Their ships were nothing like the Krenth vessels. Where the Krenth built angular and dark, the Valorum created flowing curves of silver and white. Their ships looked like they were swimming through space instead of flying through it. The Valorum themselves were equally different. They were tall and thin, almost fragile looking. Their skin had a blue-silver shimmer that changed in the light. Instead of separate fingers, their hands had multiple thin tendrils that could manipulate objects with incredible precision. Their faces were smooth, with large eyes that saw into the ultraviolet spectrum. Their leader was called Harmonizer Velix. Unlike Krenna's scarred appearance, Velix looked pristine, almost artificial in his perfection. When he spoke, his voice had a musical quality, like several tones at once. Guardian Chen, he said using her military title, we appreciate humanity's willingness to facilitate these discussions. We're honored to help, Chen replied. The Valorum valued politeness in protocol. You had to match their formality, or they considered you barbaric. This place you have chosen, Velix continued, looking around at the gray landscape. It is quite lifeless, appropriate for neutral ground, I suppose. It serves its purpose, Chen said. What neither alien leader knew was that while they arrived and settled into their quarters, Chen's team was conducting final preparations. Sergeant Park was checking weapon caches hidden in 3 different lava tubes. Corporal Okonkwo was adjusting the surveillance network that now covered 50 square kilometers. Private Zhang was reviewing medical protocols for treating injuries to 4 different species types. And Chen herself was updating her tactical maps with the exact positions of every Krenth and Valorum ship in orbit. They're watching each other, Rodriguez reported that night. The human team had gathered in their secure command center, deep in the main building. Both fleets have weapons hot, not targeting each other yet, but close. Expected, Chen said. They've been at war for 3 years. Trust doesn't come back overnight. Do you really think someone might attack? Zhang asked. The young medic looked worried. Chen pulled up a star map on the main display. Look at this. The territories the Krenth and Valorum are fighting over are here. She highlighted a cluster of systems. Rich in rare minerals, energy sources, strategic value. If they make peace, they'll likely split those territories, share the resources. Which means nobody wins completely, Park said, understanding. Exactly. Now look at who else is nearby. Chen expanded the map. 3 other major powers had territory within striking distance. The Zex Concordat, the Thulian Republic, the Macros Combine. The Zex have been expanding aggressively, Rodriguez said. If the Krenth and Valorum are both weakened from war, the Zex could move in, take everything. But if this peace talk succeeds, The Krenth and Valorum become allies, Chen continued. Together, they're strong enough to stop Zek's expansion. The Zeks don't want that. So they might try to sabotage the talks, Okonkwo finished. It's what I would do, Chen said, if I was ruthless enough. The first 2 days of talks went smoothly, too smoothly in Chen's opinion. The delegations met in the conference center. They discussed territories, resource sharing, reparations for war damage. Both sides had brought detailed proposals. They were actually trying to find common ground. But Chen couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She spent hours reviewing the orbital sensor data. The Krenth and Valorum ships maintained their positions. Nothing unusual there. No other ships had entered the system. The moon itself remained quiet. Maybe you're wrong, Rodriguez suggested on the third day. Maybe it really is just a peace talk. Chen wanted to believe that, but 30 years of experience told her otherwise. Keep watching, she ordered. Something's coming. I can feel it. That night, she walked the perimeter alone. The humans had set up a network of sensors in a ring around the conference area. Motion detectors, seismic monitors, atmospheric analyzers, anything that might give warning of an attack. She checked each sensor personally. Most commanders would have delegated this work, but Chen liked to use her own eyes and hands. Technology failed, training failed, but personal attention rarely did. At Sensor Station 12, she found something odd. The seismic monitor showed vibrations in a pattern that didn't match natural moon tremors. It was too regular, too rhythmic. She pulled out her portable scanner and adjusted the frequency. The vibrations became clearer. They were coming from orbit, but not from the Krenth or Valorum ships. Something else was up there, something using a stealth system to hide from standard sensors. Chen's blood went cold. She triggered her emergency communicator. All teams, alert status. We have unknown contacts in orbit. Rodriguez, get everyone to the shelters. Park, activate defensive protocols. Okonkwo, try to get a message to the fleet. What's happening? Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. We've got company, Chen said, and they're not friendly. She started running back toward the main camp. Behind her, alarms began to sound. The Krenth and Valorum would hear them. They would wonder what was wrong. They would find out soon enough. Chen was 50 meters from the conference center when the sky lit up. Orbital strikes. Massive energy beams that carved through the atmosphere and slammed into the ground. The conference center's shields activated automatically, a shimmering dome of energy that absorbed the first strikes. But the shields wouldn't last forever. All personnel, evacuate to secondary positions, Chen shouted into her communicator. This is not a drill. More beams fell from the sky. The ground shook with each impact. Dust and rock flew into the air. Through the chaos, Chen saw alien ships decloaking in orbit. Not Krenth, not Valorum. These were Zek's vessels. Smaller than the others, but there were dozens of them. They had been hiding, waiting for the right moment. A beam struck near the human quarters. The building exploded in a fireball that lit up the twilight. Chen felt the heat wash over her. She dove behind a rock formation and triggered her suit's emergency beacon. Chen to all teams, sound off. The responses came back one by one. Park was alive. Rodriguez had reached the underground entrance. Zhang was helping wounded Valorum to safety. Okonkwo's signal was weak, but present, but 3 of her people didn't respond. Johnson, Kim, Reeves. Either their communicators were down or they were gone. Chen felt rage build in her chest. She had prepared for this. She had known it was coming, and still she had lost people. The orbital bombardment continued for 10 minutes. When it finally stopped, the conference center was a burning ruin. The shield had failed after the third strike. The Krenth and Valorum quarters were heavily damaged. Smoke rose from a dozen impact points, and then the landing ships came down, 20 of them, settling into positions around the conference area. Ramps dropped. Zek soldiers poured out. They wore powered armor and carried weapons that crackled with energy. Chen counted quickly. At least 500 troops in the first wave, maybe more in the ships. They were moving to secure the area, capture survivors, eliminate witnesses. She activated a coded channel. All human personnel, execute Protocol Midnight. I repeat, Protocol Midnight. It was the plan she had made them practice, the one they all hoped would never be needed. Every human would disappear into the underground network. They would become ghosts, and they would make the Zeks regret coming to Bhatti 180. Chen took one last look at the burning camp. Then she slipped into the shadows and headed for the nearest lava tube entrance. The Zeks thought they had won. They thought the humans were dead. They thought this moon was secure. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The lava tube was dark and cold, but Chen's suit compensated automatically. She moved quickly through the tunnel, her helmet display showing the route in soft, green light. Behind her, the sounds of destruction faded to distant rumbles. She had drilled this path with her team a dozen times, 300 meters through the tube, then left at the first junction. Another 200 meters to Cache Point Alpha. But knowing the route and running it under fire were different things. Her communicator crackled. Chen, this is Rodriguez. I have 6 people at Cache Point Beta. We're secure. Copy that. I'm heading to Alpha. Status on the aliens? The Krenth scattered when the bombardment started. I saw War Chief Krenna and at least 20 of her warriors make it to the eastern ridges. The Valorum took heavier casualties. Their quarters took a direct hit. Chen cursed quietly. The Valorum weren't warriors. They were diplomats, administrators, thinkers. They wouldn't survive long in a combat situation. Can you reach any of them? She asked. Negative. The Zeks are jamming all standard frequencies. I'm only reaching you because we're on the hardline system. The hardline system was another piece of Chen's preparation. She had run fiber optic cables through the lava tubes, creating a communication network that couldn't be jammed or intercepted from orbit. It was crude, but it worked. Maintain radio silence on all other channels, Chen ordered. Let the Zeks think we're scattered and confused. Gather anyone you can find and bring them to Rally Point 7. We'll regroup there in 2 hours. Understood. Rodriguez out. Chen reached Cache Point Alpha 10 minutes later. It was a widening in the tunnel where her team had hidden supplies. She activated the emergency lights and checked the inventory. Weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, food, water, and batteries. Everything was intact. She grabbed a rifle and loaded it with practiced efficiency. The weapon felt good in her hands. Solid. Real. She attached extra magazines to her belt and filled a pack with medical supplies and rations. As she worked, her mind raced through scenarios. The Zeks had obviously planned this carefully. They had hidden their ships using advanced stealth technology. They had waited until both delegations were on the ground, vulnerable. The orbital bombardment was meant to kill everyone and destroy the evidence. But the Zeks had made a mistake. They had assumed the moon was just a dead rock. Empty. No cover. No resources. No danger. They didn't know Chen had spent 3 weeks turning Bhatti 180 into a fortress. She finished loading her pack and sealed the cache. Time to move. Rally Point 7 was a large chamber deep in the lava tube network. It was defensible, with multiple exits and good sightlines. A perfect place to gather her forces and plan their next move. The journey took 30 minutes of careful navigation. Chen moved slowly, checking every junction, every shadow. The Zeks would be securing the surface, but they might send scouts into the tubes. She couldn't afford to be surprised. She reached Rally Point 7 to find 6 people already there. Rodriguez stood by the entrance, his rifle ready. Sergeant Park was treating a burn on Corporal Okonkwo's arm. Private Zhang was organizing medical supplies. 2 combat engineers, Privates Miller and Hassan, were setting up a portable command station. Status report, Chen said as she entered. Rodriguez saluted. 9 confirmed survivors from our team. Johnson, Kim, and Reeves are KIA. Their quarters took a direct hit, no chance of survival. Chen felt the loss like a punch to the gut. 3 good soldiers, 3 people she was responsible for. But she couldn't grieve now. That would come later, if there was a later. What about the aliens? She asked. Unknown. The Krenth are probably scattered in the ridge systems. They're survivors. The Valorum, Rodriguez shook his head. Their area was hit hard. If any survived, they're on their own. Surface situation? The Zeks have established a perimeter around the conference area. I count 20 landing ships and approximately 500 troops. They're setting up fortifications and running search patterns. Chen pulled up a tactical display on the portable station. The hologram showed the moon's surface with red markers indicating Zek's positions. They were being methodical, professional. This wasn't a random attack. This was a military operation. They're going to realize their jamming isn't complete, Park said. She had finished treating Okonkwo and was checking her own weapons. When they don't find bodies, they'll know someone survived. Let them figure it out, Chen said. By the time they do, we'll be ready. Ready for what? Hassan asked. Ma'am, we're 9 people against 500. Even with our preparations, those aren't good odds. Chen looked at each of them. Young faces, most of them. Scared but trying not to show it. They were looking to her for hope, for a plan, for something that made sense of this nightmare. You're right, she said. If this was a fair fight, we'd lose. But I don't plan on fighting fair. We have advantages the Zeks don't know about. We know this terrain. We have supplies positioned throughout the tube network. We have weapons and tools. And most importantly, we have time. Time for what? Okonkwo asked. For the fleet to respond. The Krenth and Valorum both have ships in orbit. When their delegations don't report in, they'll investigate. But the Zeks are jamming long-range communications, so it might take hours or days before help arrives. So we wait? Miller said. No, Chen replied. We make them pay for every hour they're here. We hit them hard, disappear, and hit them again. We use this moon against them. We become ghosts that they can't predict or stop. And we survive until help arrives. She pulled up a new display showing the lava tube network. We have 17 major tube systems mapped, dozens of smaller connections, supply caches at 40 locations. The Zeks will try to secure the surface, but they can't secure what's under their feet. Guerrilla warfare, Rodriguez said, understanding. Exactly. Small teams, quick strikes, use the environment. Park, you'll take Miller and Hassan. I want you to scout the Zek's perimeter, find weaknesses, report back, but don't engage unless necessary. Yes, ma'am. Rodriguez, take Zhang and Okonkwo. Try to locate any Krenth survivors. If you find them, see if they're willing to coordinate. The Krenth are warriors. They'll understand what we're trying to do. And you? Rodriguez asked. I'm going after the Valorum. If any survived, they'll need help. And we need to know what the Zeks are planning. The teams prepared quickly. Chen checked her equipment one last time. Rifle, sidearm, survival knife, medical kit, rations, water, and grenades. Not much, but enough. Before they split up, Chen gathered everyone together. Remember your training. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Don't be heroes. Our job is to survive and make the Zeks regret coming here. Questions? There were none. Good. Synchronize your timers. We'll regroup here in 8 hours unless emergency protocols are activated. If you're compromised, go dark and evade. The tubes are your friends. Use them. The teams moved out in different directions. Chen watched them go, then turned and headed toward the western tubes. The Valorum quarters had been in that direction. If anyone survived, they would have run that way. The journey took 45 minutes through narrow passages and steep climbs. The tubes here were older, more unstable. Rocks occasionally fell from the ceiling. Chen moved carefully, testing each step. She was halfway to her destination when she heard voices. Not human, not Krenth, Valorum, speaking in their musical language, high and frightened. Chen switched her communicator to the galactic common frequency and whispered, "This is Colonel Sarah Chen, Human Security Forces. I'm here to help. Please respond on this channel if you can hear me." Silence for a long moment. Then a voice came back, trembling but clear. "Human, you survived?" "Yes. How many of you are there?" "4. We're trapped in a collapse near Junction 7 Alpha. One is injured badly." Chen checked her map. Junction 7 Alpha was 300 meters ahead, but it showed as unstable on her geological survey. The bombardment must have triggered a cave-in. "I'm coming to you. Stay calm and stay quiet. The Zeks are searching the surface." She moved faster now, less concerned with stealth. The Valorum needed help immediately. When she reached the junction, she found a wall of fallen rock blocking the passage. But her helmet sensors detected heat and movement on the other side. "I'm here," she whispered into her communicator. "Can you hear me?" "Yes." The voice was louder now, more desperate. "Please, we cannot move the rocks. They are too heavy." Chen studied the collapse. It was bad, but not impossible. She pulled out a small explosive charge from her pack, a breaching charge designed to blast through obstacles. Normally, she would use it on doors or walls, but rock would work too. "Move away from this wall," she ordered. "I'm going to blast through. Cover your ears and eyes." She placed the charge carefully, shaping it to direct the blast inward. Then she retreated 20 meters and triggered the detonator. The explosion was sharp and loud, echoing through the tubes. Dust and smoke filled the passage. Chen rushed forward before it cleared, her rifle ready in case something came through with her. 4 Valorum emerged from the smoke, coughing and stumbling. 3 were mobile. The 4th was being carried by the others, leaving a trail of silver blood. Chen quickly scanned them with her medical sensors. Burns, cuts, possible broken bones. The carried one was much worse. Internal injuries, bleeding. Without treatment, he wouldn't last long. "Come with me," she said. "I have medical supplies at a safe location." The Valorum who seemed to be in charge looked at her with large, frightened eyes. "Why would you help us? You could hide better without us." Chen thought about all the reasons she could give. Military duty, common decency, political advantage. But she settled on the simple truth. Because it's the right thing to do. "Now move, we don't have much time." She led them back through the tubes toward Rally Point 7. It would be crowded now, but they would manage. The Valorum were slow and frightened, but they followed her without complaint. As they walked, Chen's mind was already planning the next steps. They had survivors. They had a base. They had weapons and supplies. Now they needed to show the Zeks that Bhatti 180 was anything but a dead rock. They needed to turn this moon into the deadliest place the Zeks had ever seen. The war had just begun. The Zeks patrol moved through the gray dust like they owned the place. 5 soldiers in powered armor, weapons scanning for targets. Their helmet displays showed nothing but rocks and empty craters. The thermal scans were clean, the motion sensors quiet. "Sector 7-3 clear," the patrol leader reported back to base. "No contacts, no survivors." What the patrol leader didn't know was that 300 meters away, hidden in a lava tube entrance, Sergeant Park watched them through her rifle scope. The Zek's armor made them look bigger, more dangerous, but armor had weak points, joints, seals, power supplies. She had studied Zek's military gear during her training. She knew exactly where to aim. But Chen's orders were clear. No engagement unless necessary. They were ghosts, invisible. Let the Zeks waste time searching empty rocks while the humans prepared their real response. Park lowered her rifle and activated her communicator. "Park to Chen, Zeks patrol in Sector 7-3, 5 soldiers, standard armor, moving north. They're searching but finding nothing." "Copy that," Chen's voice came back through the hardline. "Continue observing. Mark their patrol routes." Park watched the Zeks soldiers move on. They walked with confidence, too much confidence. They thought this moon was secure. They thought they had won. That would change soon. She marked the patrol route on her tactical display and settled in to watch. Miller and Hassan were positioned at other observation points around the Zek's perimeter. Together, they were building a complete picture of enemy movements, patrol schedules, shift changes, weak points in the coverage. Back at Rally Point 7, Chen was organizing their small refugee group. The four Valorum were huddled in one corner. Zhang was treating the injured one, whose name turned out to be Harmonizer Velix, the Valorum leader. The other three watched nervously as Zhang worked. "Your medical knowledge is impressive," one of them said. Her name was Speaker Trill. "I did not know humans studied Valorum physiology." "We study everyone," Chen replied, "just in case." "In case of war?" "In case we need to help." Chen checked the medical readouts. Velix was stable, but weak. The internal bleeding had been stopped, but he needed rest and proper treatment, neither of which they had time for. Rodriguez returned from his scouting mission with news. "Found 3 Krenth warriors 2 clicks east. War Chief Krenna is with them. They're holed up in a cave system and ready to fight." "Were they willing to talk?" Chen asked. Rodriguez grinned. "Once I convinced them I wasn't a Zek's assassin. Krenna wants to coordinate. She has a war party of 23 survivors scattered around the area. She's gathering them now." "Good, we need the numbers. What about communications?" "The Krenth use encrypted burst transmissions, short range but harder to jam. Krenna can coordinate her people without the Zeks knowing." Chen pulled up the tactical map and marked the Krenth positions in blue. Combined with her own people in green and the Valorum in yellow, they had maybe 40 survivors total. Against 500 Zeks, still terrible odds, but better than 9 humans alone. "The Krenth will want to attack," Chen said. "That's their nature. We need to make sure they attack smart, not just hard." "Krenna asked if you would meet with her," Rodriguez said. "Tonight after dark. She has a proposal." Chen considered. Meeting face-to-face was risky, but alliances required trust, and trust required contact. "Set it up. Neutral ground, both sides armed but not threatening. Standard diplomatic protocols." Rodriguez nodded and moved to make the arrangements. The hours passed slowly. Park reported regular Zeks patrols, but no changes in their search patterns. The Zeks were being thorough but predictable. They were treating this like a cleanup operation, not a combat zone. That was their first mistake. When full darkness came to the border zone where they had made camp, Chen prepared for the meeting. She took Rodriguez and Park with her, leaving Hassan in command of Rally Point 7. They moved through the tubes to a junction that offered good sightlines and multiple escape routes. War Chief Krenna arrived exactly on time. She brought 2 warriors with her, both carrying weapons that looked like they could punch through starship hulls. But the weapons stayed pointed at the ground. This was a diplomatic meeting, even if everyone was ready for violence. Krenna studied Chen with her glowing orange eyes. "You fought well to survive. I saw the Zek's bombardment. It should have killed everyone." "We prepared," Chen said simply. "So I see. Your species is young, but wise." Krenna gestured to the rock around them. "These tunnels, the supplies we found hidden in caves, the sensors watching us even now. This was not prepared in 3 days." "No," Chen agreed. "I started preparing 3 weeks ago." Krenna made a sound that might have been laughter. "You planned for betrayal before anyone arrived. Smart. Paranoid, but smart." "The galaxy is dangerous," Chen said. "Hope for peace. Prepare for war." A Krenth saying, "You would make a good warrior." Krenna's expression turned serious. "Now we must discuss how to kill our enemies." Chen pulled up a holographic map showing the Zek's positions. "They have established a perimeter here. 500 soldiers initially, but more ships are landing. I estimate their total strength will reach 800 within 2 days." "Then we attack now, before they grow stronger," Krenna said immediately. "If we attack directly, we lose. Their armor, weapons, and numbers are too great. Krenna growled. So we hide like scared prey? No, we fight like hunters. We use the terrain. We hit them where they're weak. We disappear before they can respond. We make them afraid of this moon. One of Krenna's warriors spoke up. Guerrilla warfare. Humans are known for this. You defeated a Thulian occupation of your colony worlds using such tactics. Chen nodded. She was impressed that Krenth had studied human military history. Exactly. We're not trying to win a battle. We're trying to survive until the fleet arrives and make the Zeks pay for every hour they're here. And if the fleet doesn't arrive, Krenna asked, then we make the cost so high that the Zeks wish they had never heard of Bhatti 180. Krenna considered this. Then she reached out and gripped Chen's shoulder with one of her 4 hands. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. You think like a Krenth, not just about glory, but about victory. Very well, we will fight your way. What do you need from my warriors? Coordination, discipline, and patience. I know Krenth preferred direct combat, but I'm asking you to trust me. Trust must be earned, Krenna said. Show me your plan works, and you will have my full support. Chen understood. The Krenth needed proof before they would commit. Tomorrow night we hit their supply depot in Sector 5. It's lightly guarded, and destroying it will force them to bring supplies from orbit. That means more flights, more predictable schedules, more opportunities. A small target first, to test your methods. Yes, Krenna nodded slowly. I will send 5 warriors to assist. If this raid succeeds, we will discuss larger operations. The meeting ended with both sides satisfied. As Chen and her team made their way back to Rally Point 7, Rodriguez spoke quietly. Do you really think we can pull this off? Guerrilla warfare against a professional military force? History says yes, Chen replied. Smaller forces have defeated larger ones many times. The key is will. The Zeks think they've already won. They think this is just cleanup. We're going to show them different. Back at the rally point, Chen gathered her team for a briefing. Tomorrow we conduct our first strike. Target is the Zeks supply depot in Sector 5. Objectives are to destroy fuel cells and food supplies. Secondary objective is to gather intelligence on their operations. She pulled up detailed schematics. The depot is here, protected by a shield generator, 8 guards on rotation, 2 watchtowers with automated defenses. Access is through these doors, which are armored but not impossible to breach. How do we get past the shields? Hassan asked. We don't go through them, we go under them. Chen zoomed in on the geological data. There's a lava tube that runs directly beneath the depot. The tube is only 10 meters below the surface at this point. We plant charges, collapse the floor, and drop their supplies into the tube. The shields won't help because the attack comes from below. Park smiled. Turning the moon into a weapon, I like it. Timing will be critical, Chen continued. We need to place the charges, evacuate to safe distance, detonate, and disappear before their response teams arrive. That gives us maybe 20 minutes from start to finish. She assigned roles. Park would lead the demolition team. Rodriguez would command the covering force. Zhang would be on standby for medical support. Chen herself would coordinate from a nearby observation point. The Krenth are sending 5 warriors as observers, Chen added. They want to see if our methods work before committing fully, so let's make sure this goes perfectly. The team spent the rest of the night preparing. They checked their equipment 3 times. They reviewed the tunnel routes. They memorized the timing down to the second. This had to work. The Krenth alliance depended on it. Their survival depended on it. Chen tried to sleep for a few hours but found it impossible. She kept thinking about Johnson, Kim, and Reeves. 3 empty spots in her team. 3 families that would receive notification letters. 3 funerals she would have to attend if they ever made it home. She pushed the thoughts away. Grief later, survival now. Before dawn, Park reported that another Zeks patrol had passed within 50 meters of one of their observation posts without detecting anything. The Zeks were getting comfortable, Routine was setting in. Perfect. Chen gathered her strike team as false dawn began to lighten the sky. Remember, we're not heroes today. We're professionals. We complete the mission and we all come home. Questions? Just one, Park said. After we blow up their depot, how long before they realize this moon is fighting back? Chen smiled grimly. Oh, they'll figure it out right away. The question is what they'll do about it. And that's when things get interesting. The team moved out through the lava tubes. Above them, the Zeks went about their routines. Guard shifts changed. Patrols followed their established routes. The supply depot hummed with activity as workers loaded and unloaded cargo. None of them knew that beneath their feet, death was approaching. Chen settled into her observation position 300 meters from the target. Through her scope, she could see the depot clearly. Rows of supply containers, fuel cells stacked in neat lines, guard towers at each corner. She activated her communicator. All teams, final check-in. One by one, her people reported ready. Park was in position beneath the depot. Rodriguez had his covering force at 2 exits. The Krenth warriors were hidden nearby, watching. Chen checked her timer. 20 minutes until the guard shift change. That was when they would be most distracted. All teams, stand by, she ordered. The seconds ticked away slowly. Chen controlled her breathing. Steady, calm. This was what she had trained for her entire career. Finally, the timer reached 0. Execute, Chen said quietly. Beneath the Zek supply depot, Park pressed the detonator. The moon itself seemed to roar as the charges exploded. The explosion came from below, exactly as planned. The ground beneath the Zek supply depot cracked and shattered. Support beams bent and snapped. Then gravity took over. The entire depot, shields and all, dropped 10 meters into the lava tube below. Fuel cells ruptured and ignited. Supply containers burst open. The shield generator sparked and died as it hit the rocky tunnel floor. Fire bloomed in the confined space, feeding on oxygen and fuel. Chen watched through her scope as Zek soldiers scrambled in confusion. Alarms screamed. Personnel ran toward the collapse, but there was nothing they could do. The depot was gone, swallowed by the moon itself. Park, status, Chen spoke into her communicator. Clear and moving to exit point Beta, Park's voice came back, slightly breathless from running. Charges performed perfectly. The whole structure went down like a house of cards. Rodriguez? No contact yet. Zeks are responding, but they're confused. They think it was a structural failure. Good. All teams maintain radio silence and return to rally point 7. Mission complete. Chen watched a few seconds longer as Zek's officers tried to organize their soldiers. They were looking at the surface, at their perimeter, at the sky. None of them were thinking about what was underneath them. That would change. But by then the humans would be long gone. She slipped away from her observation point and headed into the tubes. The route back was different from the one she had used coming in. Never use the same path twice. Basic guerrilla warfare. 30 minutes later, she arrived at rally point 7 to find her team waiting. Everyone had made it back safely. Park was grinning. Rodriguez looked satisfied. Even Zhang seemed pleased, though the medic had seen no action. The 5 Krenth warriors arrived moments later. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Warbringer Koss, approached Chen with what she had learned was a Krenth gesture of respect. He touched his chest with all 4 hands. That was not honorable combat, Koss said. His voice was a deep rumble. But it was effective. You made the enemy look foolish. Foolish enemies make mistakes, Chen replied. Mistakes we can exploit. War Chief Krenna will hear of this. She will agree to full coordination. Koss looked at the human team with new appreciation. Your species is small and soft, but you fight with cunning. The Krenth approve. After the Krenth left, Chen gathered her team for a debrief. Good work, everyone. Clean execution, no casualties, objective achieved. This is how we're going to survive. But don't get cocky. The Zeks will adapt. They'll increase security, change their patterns. We need to stay ahead of them. What's the next target? Park asked. Chen pulled up the tactical map. We wait 24 hours. Let them reinforce the remaining depots. Let them think that was a one-time strike. Then we hit their communications relay on the southern ridge. They'll be expecting an attack after today, Hassan pointed out. They'll be expecting an attack from outside. Another surface strike. We're going to hit them from below again, and again, until they realize that on this moon, there is no safe ground. The next day, the Zek's response was exactly what Chen predicted. They reinforced their remaining supply points with additional guards. They increased patrol frequency. They brought in ground-penetrating scanners to search for tunnels. But T-180's lava tube network was vast. Hundreds of kilometers of passages, some barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. The Zek scanners found some of the larger tubes, but not the smaller connections. Not the secret routes Chen's team had been using for weeks. War Chief Krenna arrived at Rally Point 7 that evening with 30 Krenth warriors. She looked around at the human operation with obvious approval. Supplies organized, maps updated, everyone busy with purpose. You were right, human, Krenna said to Chen. Cunning defeats strength when strength is blind. My warriors are yours to command. I don't command Krenth, Chen replied diplomatically, but I would be honored to coordinate our efforts. Krenna laughed, a sound like rocks grinding. Wise words. Yes, we will coordinate. Show me your plans. Chen laid out her strategy for the next week. Small strikes against isolated targets, supply lines, communication nodes, power generators, nothing that would trigger a full military response, but enough to keep the Zeks off balance. You think like a duelist, Krenna observed, not trying for the killing blow, just cutting, until the opponent bleeds out. Exactly. We can't win a direct fight, but we can make staying here so costly that the Zeks give up. And if they don't give up? Chen's expression hardened. Then we keep fighting, for as long as it takes. Over the next 5 days, Chen's coalition struck 6 more targets. A sensor array on the eastern ridge collapsed into a carefully undermined foundation. A patrol of Zek soldiers followed a tracking beacon through a tunnel system that the humans had filled with toxic gases from the moon's interior vents. A landing pad subsided when the ground beneath it was quietly removed over several nights. The Zek's casualties were light, but the psychological impact was enormous. The soldiers started to fear the ground beneath their feet. Patrol leaders refused to enter certain areas. Equipment operators reported strange vibrations and sounds from underground. Bhatti 180 was developing a reputation, the dead moon that fought back. But the Zeks weren't fools. Their commanders recognized guerrilla warfare when they saw it. They brought in specialized equipment and began mapping the lava tube networks with better scanners. They started sending troops into the larger passages. Chen had expected this. On the 8th day after the initial attack, she called a meeting with Krenna and her senior staff. They're adapting, Chen said, showing new data on Zek's movements. They're searching the tubes now. It's only a matter of time before they find our supply caches and rally points. Then we fight them in the tunnels, Krenna suggested. Ambush their search parties. That's what they expect. Instead, we're going to shift our strategy. We've been hitting them from below. Now we're going to hit them from the environment itself. She pulled up geological data on Bhatti 180's unique properties. This moon is tidally locked. One side always faces the gas giant, one side always faces space. The temperature differential is extreme. Where hot meets cold, atmospheric gases vent from underground. These vents can be controlled. Rodriguez caught on immediately. You want to weaponize the moon's natural systems. Exactly. The Zeks are on the surface, in the temperature border zone. If we redirect the gas vents, we can create toxic atmospheres in specific areas. If we trigger thermal expansion in certain rock formations, we can cause localized earthquakes. The moon becomes our weapon. Park studied the data with growing excitement. This is brilliant. They can't defend against the environment. They can't shoot rocks for venting gas. Won't this take a lot of time and resources? Hassan asked. 3 days if we work around the clock, but it'll be worth it. The Zeks will have to either abandon large sections of the surface or commit massive resources to environmental control. Krenna slammed one of her fists on the table, making everyone jump, but she was smiling. I said you fight like a Krenth. I was wrong. You fight better. You turn the battlefield itself into an enemy. This is worthy of songs. The next 3 days were exhausting. Teams worked in shifts, placing charges on gas vent covers, collapsing specific passages to redirect underground flows, and mining strategic rock formations. The work was dangerous. 2 Krenth warriors were injured in a premature collapse. Zhang treated them as best she could with limited supplies, but the effort paid off. On the 11th day after the Zeks attack, Chen's teams triggered their environmental changes all at once. Gas vents that normally released pressure harmlessly now pumped toxic fumes directly into Zeks-controlled areas. The fumes were heavier than air, settling into low spots where the Zeks had placed equipment. Sensors failed. Personnel had to evacuate in respirators. At the same time, thermal stress fractures that had been carefully weakened began to fail. Not all at once, but in cascading patterns. Small earthquakes rippled through the moon's surface. Nothing strong enough to cause major damage, but enough to topple equipment, crack foundations, and terrify soldiers who thought the moon itself was attacking them. Chen watched from her command post as chaos spread through Zek's positions. Their neat perimeter became scattered and disorganized. Units retreated from toxic zones. Officers shouted contradictory orders. The professional military force was coming apart. Now we hit them, Krenna said, arriving at Chen's observation point. She had 20 warriors ready for combat. While they are weak and scattered, Chen wanted to say no, wanted to stick with the guerrilla strategy, but Krenna was right. There was a time for patience and a time to strike. Agreed, but we choose our target carefully, not their main base. Hit their forward observation post on Hill 237. If we can take it, we control the high ground for the entire northern sector. Krenna showed her teeth in what was definitely a smile. Finally, true combat. My warriors grow tired of sneaking and hiding. The assault on Hill 237 happened at midnight. 30 Krenth warriors, supported by 6 human soldiers, hit the position from 3 directions. The Zeks defenders, already stressed by the environmental chaos, were caught completely off guard. The battle lasted 18 minutes. The Zeks fought well, but they were outnumbered and outflanked. Krenna led from the front, her 4 arms wielding weapons with devastating efficiency. Chen provided covering fire from a nearby position, her rifle picking off Zeks soldiers who tried to call for reinforcements. When it was over, Hill 237 belonged to the coalition. They had their first permanent surface position. The Zeks had their first real defeat. Chen stood on the hill and looked out over the gray landscape. In the distance, she could see Zek's positions marked by lights and activity. Closer, she saw the damage her teams had caused. Collapsed depots, toxic fog banks, cracked landing pads. Rodriguez joined her. We're actually doing it. We're fighting back. We're surviving, Chen corrected. Fighting back is what comes next. She activated her long-range communicator and sent out a coded message on all frequencies. It was time to try reaching the fleet. Time to let them know that Bhatti 180 was still contested, that the peace talks had been attacked, that help was needed. The message broadcasted for 10 seconds before Zeks jammers cut it off. But 10 seconds might be enough. Somewhere out there, Krenth and Valorum ships were waiting. They just needed to know where to look. How long do you think we can hold out? Rodriguez asked. Chen thought about their supplies, their ammunition, the wounded who needed proper medical care, the constant pressure of fighting an enemy that outnumbered them 10 to 1. As long as we have to, she said finally. That's the only answer that matters. Below them, the Zeks were regrouping, adapting, planning their response. This wasn't over. The real battle was just beginning. But Chen had proven her point. 12 humans and some alien allies could turn a dead moon into the most dangerous place in the system. Now they just had to stay alive long enough to see it through. The Zek's response came at dawn. Not subtle, not careful, just overwhelming force. Artillery bombardment turned the area around Hill 237 into a nightmare of explosions and flying rock. Chen's coalition had abandoned the hill 10 minutes before the barrage began, retreating into the lava tubes through routes they had prepared days earlier. They're angry now, Park observed as the ground shook above them. We really got under their skin. Good, Chen replied. She was studying the seismic sensors they had placed throughout the area. The bombardment was heavy but predictable. The Zeks were leveling Hill 237 and everything around it. Lots of firepower, not much strategy. Angry enemies make emotional decisions. Emotional decisions cost lives. The bombardment lasted 2 hours. When it finally stopped, the surface was transformed. Hill 237 was gone, blasted into a crater. The surrounding area looked like a meteor field. The Zeks had used enough firepower to destroy a small city, and they had killed nothing but rocks. That bombardment just cost them a fortune in ammunition, Rodriguez calculated, plus fuel for all those artillery platforms. They're burning through resources fast. Exactly what we want, Chen said. Every shell they fire at empty hills is one less they have for real threats. When the fleet arrives, the Zeks will be running on fumes. But there was a problem, and Chen knew it. They had been fighting for 13 days now. Supplies were running low. Ammunition was down to 60%. Medical supplies were depleted. And most critically, they had 2 seriously wounded Krenth who needed treatment that Zhang couldn't provide with field equipment. Harmonizer Velix, the Valorum leader, had recovered enough to move around. He approached Chen's command station with his usual cautious grace. "Colonel, may I speak with you?" "Of course. My people are grateful for your protection. You saved our lives when you had no obligation to do so. But I must ask, how long can we sustain this resistance?" Chen appreciated his directness. "Honestly, 2 more weeks at current intensity. 3 if we ration carefully and take no more casualties. And if the fleet doesn't arrive in 3 weeks?" Chen met his large eyes steadily. "Then we make a choice, surrender or fight to the end." "There is a third option," Velix said quietly. "You could leave us, take your people and try to escape in a small craft. The Valorum would distract the Zeks while you fled." "No. Colonel, you have already done more than—" "No," Chen repeated firmly. "We don't abandon allies. Not now. Not ever. We survive together, or we don't survive at all." Velix was quiet for a moment. Then he touched his tendrils to his chest in what Chen recognized as a Valorum gesture of deep respect. "Then we will fight beside you to the end, whatever that may be." That night, Chen called a leadership meeting. War Chief Krenna attended with her senior warriors. Velix brought Speaker Trill. Rodriguez, Park, and Hassan represented the human team. "We need to change tactics again," Chen began. She pulled up their resource inventory on the holographic display. The numbers look bad in glowing red. "We can't sustain this level of conflict much longer. We need to make the Zeks think we're stronger than we are." "Deception," Krenna said. "The Krenth do not traditionally favor such methods, but I am learning to appreciate their value." "I have an idea," Hassan spoke up. The combat engineer had been quiet for most of the campaign, but Chen knew he had been working on something. "We have the mining drones, the ones we use for the initial surveys. We use those to carry sensors and place charges," Rodriguez said. "What else can they do?" Hassan grinned. "I've been reprogramming them. Mining drones are designed to be autonomous. They can navigate tunnels, identify valuable minerals, and extract them. But the navigation and identification systems can be modified. Modified how? Chen asked, though she was beginning to see where this was going. To identify and attack Zex targets. The drones aren't weapons under Galactic Accords because they're civilian mining equipment. But if a mining drone mistakes a Zex soldier for a mineral deposit that needs to be extracted, well, that's just a malfunction. Park laughed. You want to turn mining drones into combat robots. Not robots, just malfunctioning mining equipment, completely accidental. Chen considered the implications. The synthetic combatant accords prohibited autonomous weapons, but only military-design ones. Civilian equipment that malfunctioned was a gray area, a very useful gray area. How many drones do we have? She asked. 50 in various states of operation. I can have 30 ready to deploy in 2 days. They're not fast and they're not heavily armed, but they're tough and they're programmable. Do it, Chen ordered, but make sure the programming looks like natural malfunctions. If this ever goes to a tribunal, I want plausible deniability. Krenna looked confused. Why do you care about tribunals? We are fighting for our lives. Because wars end, Chen explained. And when they do, people ask questions. I want to make sure we can answer those questions honestly. We're fighting smart, not dirty. Human morality is complicated, Krenna observed, but I respect the principle. Fight hard, but with honor. Over the next 2 days, Hassan and his engineering team worked around the clock to reprogram the mining drones. The machines were bulky, about the size of a small vehicle, with multiple arms designed for breaking and collecting rocks. Those same arms, fitted with different tools, could break and collect other things. On day 16 of the siege, the drones were released. They emerged from lava tubes across the Zex-controlled area like mechanical monsters from the deep. Their programming was simple. Identify Zex equipment signatures, approach, and begin mining operations. The first Zex patrol that encountered a drone tried to shoot it. The mining drone's armor, designed to withstand cave-ins and high-pressure rock drills, shrugged off small arms fire. The drone identified the patrol's weapons as valuable metallic deposits and began trying to extract them. 3 Zex soldiers were injured before they managed to retreat. Word spread quickly through the Zex ranks. The moon itself was attacking them now, strange machines emerging from underground, unstoppable, relentless, always extracting, always mining. Chen monitored the chaos from her command post. The psychological impact was exactly what she had hoped for. Zex soldiers were reporting seeing drones everywhere, even where none existed. Equipment failures were blamed on drone attacks. Morale was collapsing. This is almost too effective, Rodriguez said. They're on the edge of panic. Then we push them over, Chen decided. Krenna, are your warriors ready for another surface operation? Always, the war chief replied. Good. We're going after their command center, not to take it, just to make them think we might. The raid happened at midnight. 40 Krenth warriors and 8 humans hit the Zex command center from 2 directions. They didn't try to breach the defenses. They just made a lot of noise, fired a lot of shots, and retreated before the Zex could organize a response. But the psychological damage was done. If the rebels could strike at the command center itself, nowhere was safe. The Zex commander, an officer named War Master Drex, made a critical decision. He called for reinforcements. Chen intercepted the communication and smiled. They're bringing in more troops. That means more ships, more supplies, more targets. It also means we'll be even more outnumbered, Park pointed out. True, but it also means they're committing resources they can't afford to lose. Every ship they bring here is one less defending their actual territory. When the Krenth and Valorum fleets arrive, the Zex will be overextended. If the fleets arrive, Chen thought but didn't say. It had been 16 days since the attack. Her message had been sent 6 days ago. If help was coming, it should have arrived by now. But she couldn't let doubt show. Not to her team. not to the aliens who were depending on human leadership. The Zek's reinforcements arrived on day 18. 5 more ships carrying 300 additional soldiers. Chen's scouts watched from hidden positions as the new troops landed. They looked fresh, confident, unaware of what awaited them on this cursed moon. "Let them settle in," Chen ordered. "Let them think they're here to clean up a small problem. Then we show them the truth." But that night, Chen sat alone in a quiet section of the lava tubes and allowed herself a moment of doubt. 21 days since the attack, food rationed to 1 meal a day, ammunition down to 40%, 3 wounded who should be in hospitals, and still no sign of the fleet. Zhang found her there. The medic sat down without asking permission. "You're worried." "I'm always worried," Chen replied. "It's my job. The team is starting to notice. They see you're not sleeping, not eating enough. You're carrying all of this on your shoulders. That's also my job." "No," Zhang said firmly. "Your job is to lead. Leadership means sharing the burden. We're all in this together." Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, 3 weeks. If the fleet doesn't arrive in 3 weeks, we're out of options. I'm trying to figure out what happens then." "You're trying to figure out how to save everyone, even if you can't save yourself," Zhang corrected. "I see it in your eyes. You're planning a last stand that lets the rest of us escape." "That's not—" "Yes, it is. And I'm telling you now, we won't accept it. We stay together, all of us. That's non-negotiable." Chen felt something in her chest loosen slightly. "You're getting awfully comfortable giving orders to a colonel." Zhang smiled. "Someone has to. You're too stubborn to take care of yourself." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Zhang said, "The Valorum have been asking about human culture. They want to understand the species that saved them. I told them about human history, how we've faced extinction before and survived through sheer stubbornness." "We're definitely stubborn," Chen agreed. "So we'll survive this too, because that's what humans do. We adapt. We endure. We refuse to quit even when quitting makes sense." Chen stood and offered her hand to help Zhang up. "Thank you. I needed that." "Any time. Now come eat something. Rodriguez saved you some of the good rations." As they walked back to the main camp, Chen felt renewed determination. Zhang was right. Humans didn't quit, and neither would she. The next morning, she gathered her entire team and their alien allies. Over 70 beings in total, including the mining drones that now served as their mechanical infantry. "I won't lie to you," Chen said. "Our situation is difficult. We're outnumbered. We're running low on supplies. The fleet hasn't arrived yet. But we've also achieved something incredible. We've held this moon for 21 days against an enemy that should have crushed us in hours. We've turned a worthless rock into the deadliest battlefield in this sector. We've proven that courage and intelligence can overcome raw strength." She looked at each of them in turn. Her human team, the Krenth warriors, the Valorum survivors, all different, all united. "So here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep fighting, not because we think we'll win, but because surrender isn't in our vocabulary. We're going to make the Zeks pay for every meter of this moon. And when the fleet arrives, and it will arrive, we're going to be here to greet them, standing tall, undefeated." Krenna raised all 4 of her arms in salute. Her warriors followed. Velix and the other Valorum touched their tendrils to their chests. The humans stood at attention. "For Bhatti 180, Chen said. "For Bhatti 180, they all replied. The battle was far from over. But in that moment, Chen knew they would survive, not because victory was certain, but because surrender was impossible. The moon would be their fortress, their weapon, their home, and they would defend it to the last. The Zeks finally realized they were fighting a war, not conducting a cleanup operation. On day 23, War Master Drex changed his strategy. Instead of trying to control the entire moon, he consolidated his forces into fortified positions, strong points with overlapping fields of fire, heavy shields, multiple layers of defense. Chen watched the change through her surveillance network. Smart. He's not trying to hunt us anymore. He's making us come to him. Can we afford to leave them alone? Rodriguez asked. If they fortify enough, they might be able to hold until their fleet can evacuate them. That's the gamble, Chen agreed. But attacking fortified positions is exactly what we can't do. We don't have the numbers or the firepower. She studied the new Zek's defensive layout. 6 major strong points arranged in a hexagonal pattern around their landing zone. Each strong point supported the others. It was a textbook defensive formation. But textbooks assumed your enemy was on the surface. Krenna, Chen said, turning to the war chief who had joined the strategy session, how many warriors can you spare for a long-term operation, something that might take days to set up and require absolute discipline? Krenna's eyes glowed brighter, a sign of interest. All of them, if the plan is worthy. What do you have in mind? Chen pulled up a geological cross-section showing the lava tube network beneath the Zek's positions. They've fortified the surface, but underneath them, the moon is still ours. What if we didn't attack their positions? What if we just removed them? Rodriguez caught on immediately. You want to collapse the ground under their strong points. Not immediately, that's too obvious and they just rebuild. But what if we weakened the foundations over several days? Made the ground unstable but not obviously so. Then when they're fully committed to those positions, when they think they're safe, we drop them into the abyss, Park finished. That's brutal. That's survival, Chen corrected, and it uses minimal ammunition. We have plenty of explosives for mining operations. We just need time and secrecy. Krenna made a sound of approval. This is the most Krenth thing I have heard a human say. Using patience to deliver devastating violence. My warriors will do this. The operation began that night. Teams of Krenth and humans moved through the lava tubes beneath the Zek's positions. They worked in absolute silence, placing small charges on key support structures. Not enough to cause immediate collapse, just enough to weaken. The work was dangerous. The tubes were unstable to begin with. Adding explosives made them more so. On the second day, part of a tunnel collapsed unexpectedly. 2 Krenth warriors were trapped. It took 6 hours to dig them out. Both survived, but one had a broken leg. Zhang treated the injured warrior as best she could. We're running out of medical supplies, she told Chen privately. If we take many more casualties, I won't be able to help them. How long can the seriously wounded hold out? A week, maybe less. They need real medical facilities. Chen added that to her growing list of concerns. 25 days of siege, food rations cut to bare minimum, ammunition at 35%, medical supplies critical, and still no fleet. But the work continued. Each night, teams placed more charges. Each day, they monitored the Zek's positions for any sign that their activity had been detected. The Zeks remained oblivious, comfortable in their fortifications. On day 28, Hassan reported that the charges were in place beneath 4 of the 6 Zek's strongpoints. We couldn't get under the other 2. Their foundations reach bedrock, but these 4 are ready. How much warning will we need to evacuate our people from the tubes? Chen asked. 30 minutes to be safe. When those charges blow, the collapses will be massive. Debris will fill the tubes for hundreds of meters. Chen studied the tactical situation. If they drop 4 strongpoints, the Zeks would be forced to abandon their defensive pattern. They would have to consolidate into the remaining 2 positions or retreat to their ships. Either way, the humans would have won a major victory. But there was a risk. The Zeks might decide the moon was more trouble than it was worth and simply leave. That would be a victory, but it would also mean losing their bargaining position. The fleet needed to find them still fighting, still holding out. We wait one more day, Chen decided. Send out another distress signal. If there's still no response, we trigger the charges tomorrow night. The distress signal went out at dawn on day 29. Chen used every frequency she knew. Every code the Krenth and Valorum might recognize. The signal broadcasted for 30 seconds before Zek's jammers shut it down. Hours passed. No response. Chen tried not to let disappointment show. Maybe the jammers were too effective. Maybe the fleet was still too far away. Maybe they had written off everyone on Bhatti 180 as dead and moved on. She was preparing her team for the final operation when Okonkwo came running. "Colonel, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Ships. Lots of ships." Chen rushed to the communications station. The display showed multiple signatures dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The computer was analyzing the patterns. 37 ships, Okonkwo read off the data. Krenth and Valorum designs. It's the fleet. They're here. Cheers erupted in the command center. Krenth warriors roared approval. Valorum sang in their musical language. Even Chen allowed herself a smile of relief. But the celebration was premature. "Wait," she said, holding up her hand for quiet. "How long until they reach Body 180? Okonkwo checked the calculations. At current speed, 18 hours. And the Zeks? They've detected the fleet too. Okonkwo's expression changed. "Oh no, they're recalling all troops to their ships. They're preparing to evacuate." Chen understood immediately. The Zeks couldn't fight both the moon and the incoming fleet. They were cutting their losses and running, which meant they would try to destroy any evidence of their attack before they left. "How long before their ships can launch?" she demanded. 6 hours, maybe less if they rush." 6 hours. The fleet was 18 hours away. For 12 hours, the Zeks would have free reign. They could bombard the moon from orbit, eliminate all witnesses, leave nothing but ash and rubble. "We can't let them leave," Chen said. "If they escape, they'll claim we attacked them. The whole galaxy will think the peace talks failed because of us." "How do we stop them?" Rodriguez asked. "We can't shoot down their ships." Chen looked at the tactical display. The Zek's strong points, the charges planted beneath them, the moon's orbital mechanics. An idea formed, crazy and desperate but possible. "We don't shoot them down," she said slowly. "We trap them here. Krenna, how many of your warriors would volunteer for a direct assault on the Zek's landing zone?" "All of them. But you said we couldn't attack fortified positions." "We couldn't when they were at full strength. But right now they're packing up, distracted, loading equipment. If we hit them hard enough, fast enough, we might delay their departure." "Delay it how long?" Park asked. "As long as we can. Every hour we keep them here is 1 hour closer to the fleet arriving." Rodriguez shook his head. "Even if we delay them, they'll just bombard us from orbit once they break free. We need a way to keep them grounded." Chen pulled up the orbital mechanics data. Bhatti 180's unstable orbit around the gas giant. The careful calculations she had made weeks ago. The charges she had placed not just under Zek's positions, but on one side of the moon itself. "What if we change the moon's orbit?" she said quietly. Everyone stared at her. "You're joking," Hassan said. "Tell me you're joking." "I'm not. Look at these calculations. We have enough explosive power placed on the moon's dark side. If we detonate it all at once, we can alter our orbital velocity. Not much, just enough to make our trajectory unpredictable." "Unpredictable means unstable," Rodriguez protested. "We could crash into the gas giant, or break apart from tidal stress. Or we could create an orbital hazard that the Zeks can't navigate around," Chen countered. "Their ships need predictable trajectories to launch safely. If we make the moon's orbit chaotic, they'll have to wait until it stabilizes. That buys us time." "This is insane," Zhang said, but she was smiling. "We're going to threaten an entire moon as a hostage." "We're going to use every weapon we have," Chen corrected, "including the ground under our feet." She turned to her team. "This is it. This is the moment everything comes down to. We assault the landing zone to delay their departure. Then we detonate the orbital charges. We make Bhatti 180 impossible to escape from. The Zeks either surrender or they stay trapped here when the fleet arrives. And if the orbit becomes too unstable? Velix asked quietly. If the moon begins to break apart? Chen met his eyes steadily. Then we go down fighting, but we don't let the Zeks escape. We don't let them destroy the evidence. We hold them here no matter what it costs. Krenna stepped forward. You offer battle with no guarantee of survival. You offer sacrifice for justice. This is the Krenth way. My warriors will follow you into fire. All of you need to understand, Chen continued, this might be a one-way mission. Once we start this, there's no going back. Anyone who wants to stay in the tubes and wait for the fleet, I understand. No judgment, no shame. Nobody moved. Human, Krenth, and Valorum stood together. Then let's prepare, Chen said. We have 6 hours to get into position. Hassan, prep the orbital charges. Park, organize the assault teams. Rodriguez, I need you to coordinate with Krenna's warriors. Zhang, prepare for mass casualties. We're going to be fighting on the surface with no cover. As her team rushed to their tasks, Chen took a moment to look at the map one last time. Bhatti 180, a worthless moon that nobody cared about 30 days ago. Now it was going to become a prison, a weapon, a testament to what desperation and courage could achieve. She thought about her 3 dead soldiers, about all the people depending on her, about the insane gamble she was about to take. Then she picked up her rifle and headed for the surface. Time to show the Zeks that leaving Bhatti 180 wouldn't be as easy as they thought. The final battle was about to begin, and this time, the moon itself would be fighting. Chen activated her communicator to all teams. All units, this is Colonel Chen. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for every species that believes in justice. We're fighting so that the strong can't simply destroy the weak. We're fighting because someone has to. She paused. And we're going to win, because we're standing on the deadliest weapon in this system, and we know how to use it. The assault began at dusk. 70 beings against 800 Zek soldiers trying to evacuate. The odds were impossible. But Chen had stopped caring about odds weeks ago. She cared about victory. And on Bhatti 180, victory meant making your enemy regret ever hearing your name. The Zeks were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Krenth warriors emerged from the lava tubes like demons from the deep, their war cries echoing across the gray landscape. The mining drones rolled forward in formation, their mechanical arms equipped with cutting tools. And hidden in positions carefully chosen weeks ago, human sharpshooters began picking off Zek's officers. The Zek's landing zone erupted into chaos. Soldiers scrambled for weapons. Equipment was abandoned mid-loading. Ships tried to power up faster, their engines whining with the strain. Chen watched through her rifle scope from a ridge 800 meters away. She had Rodriguez and Park with her, 3 rifles against an army. But 3 rifles in the right hands, in the right position, could change everything. Target the fuel lines, she ordered. Every ship has external fuel connections for ground support. Sever those and they can't launch without repairs. Park's rifle cracked. A fuel line burst, spraying volatile chemicals across the loading area. Seconds later, a stray shot from the battle below ignited it. Fire bloomed across the pad, engulfing 2 Zek soldiers and forcing others to retreat. Nice shot, Rodriguez said. Do 3 more, Chen replied. The battle raged for 20 minutes. The Krenth fought with savage efficiency, their 4 arms wielding weapons and close combat blades. The mining drones were slow but unstoppable, walking through Zek's fire like it was rain. And the humans used precision and positioning, taking shots that disrupted without exposing themselves. But the Zeks were professionals. After the initial shock, they organized. Heavy weapons platforms deployed, shields activated. Fire teams coordinated their response. We can't hold them much longer, Rodriguez said. His rifle was heating up from sustained fire. They're adapting. Chen checked the time. 23 minutes since the attack began. They needed 30 to let Hassan position the orbital charges correctly. Krenna, pull your warriors back to secondary positions, she ordered through her communicator. Fighting withdrawal, make them chase you. The Krenth began to retreat, but not in panic. They fell back in stages, covering each other, making the Zeks pay for every meter. The mining drones formed a rear guard, their bulk absorbing fire meant for living beings. As the assault force withdrew into prepared positions in the rocky terrain, Hassan's voice came through the communicator. Charges are ready. I need confirmation to arm them. This was it, the moment of no return. Once those charges were armed, but T-180's orbit would change. The moon would become unstable, unpredictable. There would be no going back. Chen took a breath. Arm the charges. Arming now. Detonation in 5 minutes on your command. 5 minutes. Chen looked down at the Zeks landing zone. Most of the troops had retreated to defensive positions around their ships. They thought the attack was over. They thought they had won. They were about to learn different. All teams, evacuate to minimum safe distance, Chen ordered. Hassan, what's our danger zone? The detonation will be massive. I recommend everyone get at least 10 kilometers from the dark side impact points and find solid cover. The shockwave will be significant. You heard him, Chen said. Everyone move. We've got 4 minutes. The withdrawal was orderly, but fast. Humans in Krenth ran through tunnels and across the surface toward Rally Point 7, which was in a protected valley 15 kilometers from the charges. The Valorum, slower and less mobile, were helped by Krenth warriors who carried them when necessary. Chen was the last to leave her observation position. She took one final look at the Zeks force. War Master Drex was down there somewhere, probably thinking he had beaten the rebels, probably already planning his report on how he pacified Bhatti 180. Enjoy the next few minutes, she whispered. They're the last peaceful ones you'll have. She ran. Her lungs burned. Her legs ached. Behind her, she could hear the Zeks beginning to reorganize, preparing to pursue. But they were too late. Everything was too late. She reached Rally Point 7 with 30 seconds to spare. Her team was there. The Krenth, the Valorum, all accounted for. Hassan, this is Chen. Detonate on my mark. She looked at the faces around her. Scared, determined, ready. Mark. The charges detonated simultaneously across the dark side of Bhatti 180. Chen felt it through her boots first, a vibration that built and built. Then came the sound, a deep rumble like the moon itself was groaning. The ground shook, small rocks bounced and danced. And then came the shockwave. It hit like a physical wall. Chen was thrown to the ground. Others fell around her. The noise was deafening, overwhelming. For 10 seconds, it felt like the world was ending. When it finally stopped, Chen pushed herself up. Her ears were ringing. Blood ran from her nose. But she was alive. Around her, others were rising too. Some injured, some dazed, but alive. Report, Chen managed to say. Her voice sounded distant in her own ears. One by one, her people checked in. 3 Krenth injured, none critical. 2 humans with broken bones. 1 Valorum with a head wound. Casualties, but survivable ones. Hassan pulled up the orbital data on his portable station. The display showed Bhatti 180's trajectory changing, curving away from its stable path. Numbers scrolled across the screen, recalculating constantly. It worked, he said, sounding amazed. The moon's orbit is now unstable. Not catastrophically so, but enough. We're oscillating between safe and dangerous trajectories. Any ship trying to launch from the surface would have to calculate launch windows, and those windows are changing every few minutes. How long can the moon maintain this orbit? Rodriguez asked. Hard to say. Could be days. Could be hours. The gas giant's gravity is trying to stabilize us, but we've introduced too much variation. Eventually, we'll either stabilize in a new orbit or, he trailed off, or crash into the gas giant, Chen finished. How long do we have? Best case, 72 hours. Worst case, 24. Chen activated her communicator to reach the Zex frequency. War Master Drex, this is Colonel Sarah Chen. You're listening to this. I know you are. Static for a moment, then a harsh voice came back. Human, what have you done? I've changed the rules. Your ships can't launch safely anymore. The moon's orbit is unstable and unpredictable. If you try to launch, your ships will either crash into the moon or be pulled into the gas giant. You're insane! You've doomed us all! No, I've given you a choice. Surrender to the incoming Krenth and Valorum fleet, or stay here and take your chances with orbital mechanics. You have maybe 48 hours to decide. The fleet won't arrive in time. We'll all die. Maybe, but if we die, you die with us. And the whole galaxy will know that the Zex Concordat tried to sabotage peace talks. Your government will be sanctioned, your territories seized, your reputation destroyed. Is that worth it? Silence on the other end. Chen could imagine Drex running the calculations, checking with his navigators, realizing she wasn't bluffing. You really are insane, Drex finally said. I'm desperate, there's a difference. You have 2 hours to make your decision. Surrender or take your chances. She cut the communication. Park looked at her with something between horror and admiration. You actually did it. You turned the moon into a hostage. I turned it into a weapon, Chen corrected, one the Zex can't fight against. The next 18 hours were the longest of Chen's life. The moon's orbit continued to wobble unpredictably. Twice the gravitational stress caused minor quakes. The Zex remained in their landing zone, trapped. Chen's forces stayed in the lava tubes, monitoring, and the fleet drew closer. On hour 16, Okonkwo picked up a new communication. Colonel, I'm getting a signal from the fleet. They want to talk to whoever is in charge on the surface. Chen activated the long-range communicator. This is Colonel Sarah Chen, United Earth Diplomatic Security. Who am I speaking with? The voice that came back was Krenth, deep and authoritative. This is Fleet Commander Rax of the Krenth Dominion. Colonel, our sensors show the moon's orbit is unstable. What is your situation? We were attacked 30 days ago by Zex forces attempting to sabotage the peace talks. We've been conducting guerrilla warfare since then. 3 hours ago, we altered the moon's orbit to prevent the Zex from escaping before you arrived. Silence. Then, you did what? We made the moon impossible to leave. The Zex are trapped here. We have evidence of their attack, survivor testimony from both Krenth and Valorum delegations. We need immediate assistance. Our supplies are depleted, we have wounded, and the moon's orbit is degrading. Colonel, you altered an entire moon's orbit as a tactical maneuver? Yes, sir, it was necessary. Another pause. Then Chen heard what might have been a laugh. You fought 800 Zex for 30 days and then threatened them with a moon. Humans continue to surprise me. We'll be in orbit in 2 hours. Hold position and prepare for extraction. Chen felt relief wash over her. They had done it. They had survived. But the crisis wasn't over yet. The moon was still unstable. The Zex still had hundreds of troops on the surface, and they had 2 hours to maintain the standoff. All teams, the fleet arrives in 2 hours, she announced. Maintain defensive positions. The Zex might try something desperate. Stay alert. In the Zex landing zone, War Master Drex was having the same thought. He gathered his senior officers for a final consultation. The fleet arrives soon. We cannot launch. We cannot fight them in space with our current position. What are our options? We could surrender, one officer suggested, and face trial for attacking peace talks. The Concordat would disavow us. We'd be executed. Then we fight, another said. Take out the rebels before the fleet arrives. Destroy the evidence. With what time? They're underground. They're scattered. And that cursed human has booby-trapped every approach. We'd never reach them all in 2 hours. Then what do you propose, War Master? Drex looked at his troops. Good soldiers, loyal. They had followed him into this disaster. They deserved better than execution or prison. We negotiate, he said finally, with the human. Chen was checking ammunition counts when the call came. Colonel, War Master Drex requests to speak with you. He wants to negotiate. Chen smiled. She had been waiting for this. Put him through. Colonel Chen, Drex's voice was tired. You've won. I acknowledge this. But I would like to discuss terms. I'm listening. My soldiers are not responsible for the decisions of the Concordat. They followed orders. If I order them to surrender, will the fleet treat them fairly? That's not my decision, but I'll advocate for fair treatment if you surrender without conditions. Full cooperation, complete evidence disclosure, no hiding anything. And me? What happens to me? You'll face trial, but a trial where you cooperate looks better than one where you don't. That's the best I can offer. Drex was quiet for a long time. Then, we will surrender when the fleet arrives. I give you my word as a warrior. I accept your word, Chen said. Keep your troops calm, and this will go smoothly. The last 2 hours passed without incident. When the fleet finally arrived, it was spectacular. 37 warships dropping from orbit, surrounding the moon. Krenth dreadnoughts and Valorum cruisers, their weapons trained on the Zex forces below. Shuttlecraft descended to Rally Point 7. Chen stood at attention as War Chief Krenna, who had been presumed dead, emerged to greet the newcomers. The reunion was emotional. Warriors saluted, civilians wept. Fleet Commander Rax found Chen standing to the side, letting the Krenth have their moment. He was a massive figure, even for a Krenth, covered in scars that told stories of 100 battles. Colonel Chen, he said, I have read the preliminary reports. They seem impossible. They're accurate, Chen replied. 12 humans and some mining equipment defeated 800 Zex troops? We had help. War Chief Krenna and her warriors, the Valorum survivors, the moon itself. It wasn't just us. Rax studied her. You altered a moon's orbit as a weapon. The engineers say it was a 1 in 1,000 chance it would work without destroying everything. I had good people doing the calculations. You risked everything on a desperate gamble. Yes, sir, that's war. Rax made that grinding laugh sound again. War is rarely this interesting. The Galactic Council will want to speak with you. This incident will have political consequences. I imagine so. There is also the matter of the synthetic combatant accords, using autonomous mining drones as weapons. Chen smiled. Those drones malfunction, sir. Tragic equipment failure. Happens all the time in harsh environments. Rax's eyes glowed with what Chen was learning to recognize as Krenth amusement. Of course, equipment failure. We will include that in the official report. As the fleet began organizing the evacuation and restoration of Body 180's orbit, Chen gathered her team one last time. They looked exhausted, dirty, injured, but alive. We did it, she said simply. Against every odd, we did it. You did it, Rodriguez corrected. You turned a dead moon into the deadliest place in the galaxy. We all did it, Chen replied. Every person here, every action, every risk. That's how we survived, together. Zhang raised her medical kit in salute. For Bhatti 180. For Bhatti 180, they all echoed. The nightmare was over. The battle was won. But Chen knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy would want answers, want to understand how 12 humans had accomplished the impossible. She looked up at the sky where the fleet was working to stabilize the moon's orbit. They would succeed. Engineers always did. And Bhatti 180 would return to being a worthless gray rock. Except it would never be worthless again. It would be the place where courage defeated overwhelming force, where a dead moon became a weapon, where the galaxy learned not to underestimate humans. Chen smiled. Let them ask their questions. She had answers, and every answer would make clear that humanity belonged among the stars. Not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to quit. That was the lesson of Bhatti 180, and it was a lesson the galaxy would never forget. The evacuation took 3 days. Fleet engineers worked around the clock to stabilize Bhatti 180's orbit, carefully detonating countercharges to balance the moon's trajectory. It was delicate work. One miscalculation and the moon could still tear itself apart. Chen watched from the observation deck of the Krenth flagship. Below, the gray surface was dotted with ships in activity. Zek's prisoners were being processed and transferred to secure vessels. The wreckage of the conference center was being cataloged. Recovery teams searched for the bodies of Johnson, Kim, and Reeves. "Colonel," a voice said behind her. Fleet Commander Rax approached with another figure. "This is Harmonizer Prime Velix of the Valorum Diplomatic Corps. He wishes to speak with you." Chen recognized him. Not the injured Velix she had rescued, but likely a relative. The Valorum often shared similar names within family groups. "Harmonizer Prime," Chen said formally. "I hope your delegation member is recovering well." "He is, thanks to you." Velix's voice had that musical quality all Valorum possessed. "He told me what you did, how you saved our people when you had no obligation, how you shared your resources when you had so little, how you risked everything to preserve justice. It was the right thing to do. Perhaps, but many would not have done it." Velix touched his tendrils to his chest in the formal gesture. "The Valorum Collective owes humanity a debt we will not forget." After Velix left, Rax remained. "You have made powerful allies, Colonel. The Valorum do not give their loyalty lightly, and War Chief Krenna has declared you an honorary Krenth warrior. That is a rare honor." "I'm not sure I deserve it," Chen said honestly. "You fought for 30 days against impossible odds and survived. You deserve it." Rax moved to stand beside her at the window. "The Galactic Council wants you to testify in person about the attack, about your response, about everything that happened here." "When?" 3 weeks, on the Council homeworld. It will be complicated. The Zeks will claim they were responding to human aggression. They will argue that your use of the mining drones violated the synthetic combatant accords. They will try to shift blame. "Let them try," Chen said. "We have evidence, recordings, survivor testimony from 3 different species. The truth will stand." "Truth and politics are not always the same thing," Rax warned. "Be prepared for that." Chen nodded. She understood. War was simple. Politics was where things got messy. Over the next few days, Chen spent time debriefing her team. Each person told their story. The fear, the exhaustion, the moments where they thought they wouldn't survive, but also the pride, the sense of accomplishment, the knowledge that they had done something extraordinary. Park showed Chen the calculations Hassan had made for the orbital change. "It was brilliant but insane. We had maybe a 20% chance of success. If any variable had been slightly off, the moon would have broken apart." "But it didn't," Chen said, "because Hassan is a genius, and you trusted him. That's leadership." Rodriguez had recovered the bodies of their fallen team members. They held a small memorial service on the surface of Bhatti 180, human custom. Chen spoke about each person, their service, their sacrifice, their place in the team. "Johnson loved terrible jokes," she said. "Kim could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Reeves wanted to see every planet in the galaxy before he retired. They won't get to finish their stories, but they're part of this story, the story of how Bhatti 180 became something more than a dead rock." The Krenth attended, standing in respectful silence. The Valorum sang a mourning song that brought tears to several humans' eyes. Even the fleet personnel who hadn't known the fallen stood at attention. After the service, Krenna approached Chen. "I have lost many warriors in my time. The pain never becomes easy, but their sacrifice gave meaning to our survival. They died protecting others. That is the highest honor. Thank you, War Chief. I have a request, Krenna continued. When you testify to the council, I wish to stand beside you, not just as a witness, but as a warrior vouching for another warrior. The Krenth word carries weight in the council. Let me lend you that weight. Chen felt something catch in her throat. You would do that? You saved my life and the lives of my warriors. You fought with courage and honor. The Krenth do not forget such things. When you face the council, you will not face them alone. On the day of departure, Chen took one last walk across Bhatti 180's surface. The moon was quieter now. Most of the fleet had left. Only a few ships remained to oversee final operations and maintain orbital stability. She found herself at the ruins of the conference center, the place where this had all begun, where the Zek's bombardment had shattered their peaceful preparations and forced them into war. Hassan found her there. Thought I'd find you here. Just saying goodbye, Chen said. Strange to be attached to a place that tried to kill us so many times. We made it home, Hassan said. Literally, for 30 days, this was home. We lived here, fought here, nearly died here. That means something. The engineers are going to rebuild it, Chen said. Turn it back into a peace talk location. The council wants to resume negotiations here as a symbol. Appropriate, the place where peace was attacked becomes the place where it's restored. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Hassan said, I've been offered a position on the council's engineering team. They want me to help design defensive systems for diplomatic locations. Turns out destroying moons and weaponizing terrain is a valuable skill set. Are you going to take it? I think so. Someone needs to make sure this never happens again. Or if it does, that the good guys are better prepared. He looked at Chen. What about you? What's next? Testify to the council. Deal with the political fallout. Then, Chen shrugged. I don't know. Part of me wants to go home, see Earth again, rest. But another part knows that what we did here matters. That there are other Bhatti 180s out there. Places where people need someone who knows how to turn nothing into something. You're going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep protecting, Chen corrected. That's what this was always about. Not victory, protection. The ship carrying Chen and her team departed Bhatti 180 the next morning. As the moon shrank in the viewport, Rodriguez came to stand beside her. Think we'll ever come back? Maybe, Chen said. Though I hope it's under better circumstances next time. It was hell, Rodriguez said. But I'm proud of what we did. We showed the galaxy what humans can do when pushed to the limit. We showed them what anyone can do, Chen corrected. Human, Krenth, Valorum. When we work together, when we refuse to give up, that's the real lesson. The journey to the council homeworld took 2 weeks. Chen spent the time reviewing her testimony, going over evidence with legal advisors the council had assigned, and preparing for what would likely be intense questioning. Krenna visited her often, sharing stories of Krenth military history and offering advice on dealing with politicians. Remember, they will try to confuse you, make simple things complex, make right and wrong into gray areas. Do not let them. Tell the truth simply and clearly. The truth needs no complexity. When they finally arrived at the council homeworld, Chen was struck by its beauty. A planet of silver towers and green parks, home to representatives from 70 species, the heart of galactic civilization. The hearing chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of different sizes and environmental needs. Council members sat in a semicircle facing the witness stand. Behind them, hundreds of observers from various species and news organizations. Chen stood at the witness stand in her dress uniform. To her right stood Krenna in ceremonial armor. To her left was the surviving harmonizer Velix, recovered enough to testify. The council chair, an ancient being from a species Chen didn't recognize, opened the proceedings. We are here to investigate the incident on Bhatti 180, an incident that resulted in over 300 deaths, significant political tensions, and allegations of war crimes from multiple parties. Colonel Sarah Chen, you commanded the defense forces. Tell us what happened. Chen took a breath. Then she began to speak. She told them about the peace talks, the preparations, the attack, the decision to resist. She explained every major operation, every tactical choice, every desperate measure. When she reached the part about altering the moon's orbit, several council members visibly reacted. One called for a recess to consult with advisors. When the hearing resumed, the questions became more pointed. Colonel Chen, a council member from the Thulian Republic, asked, "You admit to altering a celestial body's orbit. This is prohibited under galactic environmental accords. How do you justify this?" "The accords permit alterations in cases of imminent threat to life," Chen replied. "The Zeks were preparing to evacuate and destroy all evidence of their attack. We faced imminent death. The orbital alteration was our only option to preserve our lives and secure justice." "But you could have surrendered." "Surrender to forces who had just tried to kill us? Who would then eliminate witnesses and frame us for the attack? That's not surrender. That's suicide." A Zex representative stood. "The Concordat maintains that human forces initiated hostilities, that the mining drones used in combat were autonomous weapons in violation of—" "The mining drones were civilian equipment," Chen interrupted. "Equipment that malfunctioned in a hostile environment. We have full technical documentation showing they were never designed for military use. Convenient that they malfunctioned in tactically advantageous ways." "Convenient for our survival, yes." Chen looked directly at the Zex representative. "Your forces attacked a peace conference, killed hundreds of beings who came in good faith, then tried to cover it up by eliminating survivors. No amount of legal technicality changes those facts." Krenna stepped forward. "I speak for the Krenth Dominion. Everything Colonel Chen says is truth. We witnessed the attack. We fought beside the humans. We can confirm every detail of their testimony. The humans defended not just themselves, but Krenth and Valorum lives. They showed honor in impossible circumstances." Velix added his voice. "The Valorum Collective supports this testimony completely. Colonel Chen saved Valorum lives at great risk to her own people. Her actions throughout the siege were consistent with the highest diplomatic and moral standards." The hearing continued for 3 days. Questions, counter-questions, evidence review, expert testimony. Chen answered everything clearly and honestly, just as Krenna had advised. On the 3rd day, the council chair called for final statements. The Zex representative argued technical violations and claimed self-defense. Chen's legal advisor argued necessity and proportional response. Then Chen asked to speak one more time. "I want to be clear about something. We didn't fight for glory. We didn't fight for territory. We fought because surrender meant death and silence. We fought because someone needed to stand up and say that attacking peace talks is unacceptable, that murdering diplomats is unacceptable, that covering up war crimes is unacceptable." She looked at each council member in turn. "You can debate legality all you want. You can question our methods, but don't question our motives. We stood for peace, we stood for justice, and we stood for the principle that in this galaxy, the strong cannot simply destroy the weak without consequence." The council deliberated for 5 hours. When they returned, the chair read the verdict. "After reviewing all evidence and testimony, this council finds that the attack on Bhatti 180 was initiated by Zex Concordat forces in violation of multiple galactic conventions. Colonel Sarah Chen and her coalition forces acted in legitimate self-defense. While some methods were unconventional, they were proportional to the threat faced." Chen felt relief wash over her. They had won, not just the battle, but the political fight. The chair continued. Furthermore, this council commends Colonel Chen and her forces for extraordinary courage and resourcefulness. The defense of Bhatti 180 will be studied as an example of effective asymmetric warfare and coalition building. After the verdict, Chen was approached by representatives from dozens of species. Some wanted to thank her, some wanted to learn from her, some wanted to hire her for security positions. But Chen just wanted to go home. That night she found Krenna on an observation deck looking at the stars. "It's over," Chen said. "One battle is over," Krenna replied, "but you have become something larger now, a symbol. The human who turned a moon into a weapon. The warrior who refused to surrender. You cannot escape that." "I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to be a soldier." "Too late." Krenna's eyes glowed with that orange light. "Your story will be told for generations. On Krenth worlds, we already have songs about you. On Valorum planets, they teach what you did to students. You have changed how the galaxy sees humanity." Chen thought about that. 3 months ago, she had been a simple security officer preparing for boring peace talks. Now she was, what? A hero? A legend? A cautionary tale? "I just did my job," she said finally. "Yes," Krenna agreed. "And that is why your story matters. You were just doing your job, being professional, following training. And that job included turning a moon into a fortress, fighting for 30 days against impossible odds, and literally holding a celestial body hostage to protect justice. If that is what humans consider just doing the job, then the galaxy has much to learn from you." Chen smiled despite herself. "You make it sound more impressive than it was." "It was impressive. Accept that, be proud of it, and then decide what comes next." Chen looked out at the stars. So many worlds, so many possibilities. What came next? She didn't know yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Humanity belonged among those stars, not as conquerors, not as weaklings to be protected, but as equals who could stand and fight for what was right. Bhatti 180 had proven that. A dead moon, 12 humans, 30 days, and a legend that would last forever. 6 months after the council verdict, Colonel Sarah Chen stood in a classroom on Earth's newest military academy. 20 young officers sat at attention, their eyes fixed on her. They were the best and brightest of the new generation, chosen to learn advanced tactics and strategy. "Today we're going to discuss the Bhatti Doctrine," Chen began. She pulled up a holographic display showing the gray moon that had become famous across the galaxy. "Tell me, what's the first rule of asymmetric warfare?" A young lieutenant raised her hand. "Use what you have, not what you wish you had." "Correct. And what did we have on Bhatti 180? Chen asked. "Nothing," another officer said. "Just a dead moon." Chen smiled. "Wrong. We had everything. We just had to learn how to use it. Let me explain." She walked them through the 30-day siege, the preparation, the tactics, the environmental manipulation. But more importantly, she explained the thinking behind each decision, the planning, the risk assessment, the moments where everything could have fallen apart. "The mining drones," Chen said, pulling up images of the machines. "Were they weapons or tools?" The class debated. Some said weapons, some said tools. Finally, Chen held up a hand. "They were whatever we needed them to be. That's the lesson. In desperate situations, everything is a potential resource. Your job as officers is to see those possibilities." After class, Chen returned to her office. It was small but comfortable, with a window overlooking the training grounds. On her desk sat 3 items: a chunk of gray rock from Bhatti 180, a Krenth honor blade given to her by Krenna, and a crystal sculpture from the Valorum Collective. Reminders of what she had survived, what she had accomplished, what it cost. Her communicator chimed. "Colonel Chen, you have a visitor." "Send them in." The door opened and Rodriguez entered, now a major with his own teaching position. "Colonel, got a minute?" Always. What's up? Rodriguez sat down. I've been contacted by the Galactic Defense Initiative. They're forming a rapid response team for situations like Bhatti 180, places where peace talks need serious protection. They want me to lead the tactical division. That's a great opportunity. They want you too. As overall commander, Chen, they're basically asking us to do what we did on Bhatti 180, but professionally, with proper support and resources. Chen looked out the window at the training grounds, young soldiers learning to fight, learning to lead, learning to survive. I don't know if I can leave this. Teaching feels important, making sure the next generation doesn't make our mistakes. What if you could do both? Rodriguez suggested. Teach here between missions. Go where you're needed when the call comes. The Bhatti 180 defense lasted 30 days. Most of the year, you could be here. Chen considered it. Part of her wanted to stay safe, stay home, let others take the risks. But another part remembered the feeling of standing on that gray moon, knowing that she was all that stood between innocent beings and death. Let me think about it, she said finally. Over the next few weeks, Chen received more offers. Security consulting, book deals, speaking tours. Everyone wanted a piece of the Bhatti 180 story. Everyone wanted to understand how it happened. But the offer that interested her most came from an unexpected source. War Chief Krenna sent a message asking Chen to visit the Krenth homeworld. I have something to show you, the message said. Something that might interest a warrior looking for her next battle. Chen took a transport to the Krenth system. The homeworld was a harsh place, red sand and sharp rocks, but beautiful in its own way. Krenna met her at the spaceport with full ceremonial honors. Krenth warriors formed an honor guard, their 4 arms raised in salute. You honor me too much, Chen said. We honor what you represent, Krenna replied. Come, I want to show you something. They traveled to a military installation in the mountains. Inside, Chen found something she hadn't expected. A training facility designed to replicate the conditions of Bhatti 180, mock lava tubes, simulated environmental systems, holographic enemy forces. We call it the Crucible, Krenna explained. Every Krenth officer must now pass a 30-day survival and tactical exercise here. They must learn to fight as you fought, to think as you thought, to turn environment into weapon. Chen walked through the facility, amazed. They had recreated everything. The tubes, the surface features, even the temperature differentials. This is incredible. This is necessary. You showed us a new way of warfare. We would be fools not to learn from it. Krenna paused. But running this facility requires someone who understands what we're trying to teach. Someone who lived it. You want me to help train Krenth officers? I want you to help train warriors from all species. The Valorum are building a similar facility. The Thulian Republic is requesting plans. Across the galaxy, people want to learn the Bhatti doctrine, but they need a teacher who truly understands it. Chen looked around at the carefully constructed training ground. This was legacy. This was ensuring that what they had learned would spread, that other defenders on other worlds would have the knowledge to survive when the impossible happened. I'm already teaching on Earth, Chen said. Then teach here part of the year. Share your knowledge with the wider galaxy. The humans have given us many gifts. Let your tactical understanding be another. Chen thought about it. Teaching humans was important, but teaching the galaxy? That could prevent more Bhatti 180s from happening, or help others survive when they did. I'll consider it, she said. That night, Chen stood alone on a balcony overlooking the Krenth capital. The city was beautiful at night, all red stone and glowing lights, so different from Earth, but somehow familiar. Another place where beings worked and lived and hoped for peace. Her communicator chimed. It was Hassan, calling from his position with the Council's engineering team. Colonel, you should see what we're working on. Defensive systems for diplomatic facilities. Everything we learned from Bhatti 180, but engineered properly. We're making sure peace talks can actually be safe. That's good work, Chen said. It is, but I wanted your input on something. We're designing protocols for what to do if defenses fail. Evacuation routes, hidden supply caches, exactly what you did but standardized. Hassan paused. You created a whole new field of defense engineering, combat terrain manipulation. People are writing papers about it. After the call ended, Chen received another message, this one from Speaker Trill of the Valorum. Colonel, the collective is hosting a peace conference next month. We would be honored if you would attend, not as security, but as a guest. A reminder of what we're trying to achieve. The messages kept coming. Park had been promoted and was training new combat engineers in human rapid response tactics. Zhang was working with multi-species medical teams, sharing what she learned about treating different alien physiologies under combat conditions. Okonkwo had become an expert in multi-species communications and crisis management. Everyone who had survived Bhatti 180 was making a difference, using what they learned to make the galaxy safer. The 30-day nightmare had become a foundation for something larger. Chen realized what was happening. Bhatti 180 wasn't just one battle. It was a moment that changed how the galaxy thought about defense, about cooperation, about what was possible when beings from different species worked together. And she was at the center of it. Not because she wanted fame, but because she had knowledge that could save lives. The next morning, Chen sent messages accepting all the offers. She would teach on Earth. She would consult with the Galactic Defense Initiative. She would help train warriors on Krenth worlds and engineers on Valorum planets. She would share everything she knew so that others could survive their own impossible situations. 3 months later, Chen gave her first lecture to a multi-species audience at the Council's military academy. Representatives from 30 species sat in the auditorium. Humans, Krenth, Valorum, and many others, all there to learn about the battle that had become legend. Body 180 was a dead moon, Chen began. No resources, no strategic value, no reason for anyone to care about it. And that's exactly why we survived there. We took nothing and made it everything. She pulled up the tactical displays, showed them the preparations, explained the environmental manipulation, walked them through each major decision point. But more importantly, she showed them the principles, the thinking that could be applied anywhere. The key isn't the specific tactics, she explained. It's the mindset. When you have nothing, you learn to see potential everywhere. When you're outnumbered, you learn to fight smart instead of hard. When surrender means death, you learn that determination can overcome almost any obstacle. A young Thulian officer raised his hand. Colonel, you had no guarantee of success. How did you maintain morale when everything seemed hopeless? Chen smiled. We didn't focus on the whole siege. We focused on the next hour, the next mission, the next small victory. You can't survive 30 days of hell by thinking about all 30 days at once. You survive one day at a time. After the lecture, dozens of beings approached with questions. Some wanted tactical details. Some wanted to understand the human perspective. Some just wanted to shake her hand and say, thank you for showing what was possible. Later, Chen met with Krenna, Velix, and Rodriguez in a private room. The four of them sat around a table, sharing stories and updates. They had become friends during the siege, bonds forged in fire. I received word from the council, Velix said. They're designating Body 180 as a permanent peace memorial. No military activity allowed. It will be a place where species come to remember what war costs and what peace is worth. Good, Chen said. It should be remembered, all of it. The attack, the defense, the lives lost, the sacrifices made. Speaking of remembering, Krenna added, the Krenth historians have completed their account of the siege. They call it the Battle of the Dead Moon. Would you like to review it before publication? As long as they tell the truth, all of it, not just the victories, but the mistakes too. The times we barely survived, The luck we needed. People should know it wasn't perfect. It was desperate. Rodriguez pulled up a news feed on his datapad. You should see this, Colonel. The Zex Concordat just issued a formal apology for the attack. They're paying reparations to all the families of those who died. And War Master Drex has been sentenced to exile. His own government turned on him. Justice, Velik said softly. Not perfect, but real. They talked for hours, catching up on life after Body 180. Everyone was doing important work, making sure the lessons learned weren't wasted, turning a tragedy into something meaningful. As the meeting ended, Krenna pulled Chen aside. I have one more question. When you were on Body 180, when everything was desperate, did you ever think you would survive? Chen considered the question honestly. No, not really. I hoped, I fought, but I didn't believe. I just kept going because stopping meant dying. It wasn't courage, it was stubbornness. Krenna laughed that grinding laugh. That is what courage is, human. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear stop you. You thought you would die, but you fought anyway. That is the purest form of bravery. Years passed. The Bhatti doctrine became standard teaching in military academies across the galaxy. The techniques developed during the siege were refined and improved. The principles of environmental warfare, coalition building, and asymmetric defense spread. Chen continued teaching, training, and advising. She helped prevent 3 more attempted attacks on diplomatic missions. She trained officers from 50 different species. She wrote papers and gave lectures and shared everything she knew. But every year, on the anniversary of the attack, she returned to Bhatti 180. The moon had been stabilized and turned into a memorial park. Trees had been planted, somehow adapted to grow in the harsh conditions. The lava tubes were open for tours. The sites of major battles were marked with plaques. On the 10th anniversary, Chen stood at the memorial for her fallen team members. Johnson, Kim, and Reeves. Their names were carved in stone, along with the names of every being who died in the attack. Hundreds of names, hundreds of stories cut short. But around those names were other inscriptions. The story of the defense, the coalition that formed, the impossible victory, the proof that courage and determination could overcome overwhelming force. Rodriguez joined her at the memorial. He was a colonel now himself, running the Galactic Defense Initiative's training program. Think they'd be proud of what we built? I hope so, Chen said. We took their sacrifice and made it mean something. We made sure others wouldn't have to die the same way. Do you ever regret it? All of this? You could have had a quiet career. Instead, you became famous. Chen smiled. Fame wasn't the goal. Survival was. Making sure the peace talks succeeded was. Protecting the innocent was. The fame is just what happened after. She paused. But no, I don't regret it. We did something impossible. We proved that a handful of beings with courage could change the course of history. As the sun set over Bhatti 180, casting long shadows across the gray rock, Chen thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the exhaustion, the desperate hope, the small victories that added up to something larger. They had turned a worthless moon into the deadliest battlefield in galactic history. And then they had turned that battlefield into a memorial for peace. They had taken death and made it into life, taken despair and made it into hope. That was the real legacy of Bhatti 180. Not the tactics, not the techniques, but the proof that when beings from different worlds stood together, when they fought for justice and refused to surrender, they could accomplish anything. Chen touched the memorial stone, feeling the rough surface under her fingers. Thank you, she whispered to the names carved there. You gave us a chance. We made it count. As she walked away from the memorial, Chen looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, peace talks were happening. Beings from different species were trying to solve their problems through negotiation instead of violence. And if those talks were attacked, if peace was threatened, there would be defenders ready. Defenders trained in the body doctrine. Defenders who knew how to turn nothing into everything. Defenders who would fight for 30 days or 30 years if that's what justice required. The galaxy had learned the lesson of Bhatti 180, not just that humans were formidable, but that any beings from any species could become formidable when they refused to accept defeat. Chen smiled as she boarded the transport that would take her home. She had teaching to do tomorrow, officers to train, knowledge to share. The work of peace was never finished. But thanks to a dead moon and 30 desperate days, that work had become a little bit easier. Bhatti 180 would be remembered. The battle, the siege, the impossible victory. But most of all, it would be remembered as the place where courage defeated fear, where intelligence defeated strength, and where a handful of beings proved that surrender was never the only option. That was a legacy worth having. That was a story worth telling. And that was why Colonel Sarah Chen would spend the rest of her life making sure that story spread to every corner of the galaxy. Because in a universe full of threats and dangers, sometimes the most powerful weapon was the knowledge that someone, somewhere, had faced impossible odds and won. That someone had turned a dead moon into a fortress. That someone had refused to quit, and if they could do it, then anyone could. That was the true lesson of Bhatti 180. That was what would keep the galaxy safe for generations to come. The story wasn't over, it was just beginning.